So, 27 graves and abuse. But along with those graves are former students. Let's see. A school that owns a cemetery, and yet there's students that once attended the school that claim that they were in fact beaten, severely beaten, as well as other students. But two, they in fact witness other individuals, students just like themselves, beaten to death. How odd and strange is that? Like, subscribe, ID in the Discovery Channel. Yes, ID in the Discovery Channel. The links are provided below. Get that Discovery Go app as well as that ID Go app. You might want to get those two things combined and make them into one. So, claims of students beaten to death. Those claims, once again, were made by other students, former students of this school, and this school owning a cemetery. Pretty odd and strange, isn't it? Answer me on this, dear viewer. What school owns a cemetery and why? What will be the reason for a school to own a cemetery? There, in fact, have been several schools in which have owned cemeteries in the past, and yet even back then you would in fact want to ask these sort of questions. Why would a school want to own a cemetery? That's strange in that. Because some people, when they get to delve in too deeply, they'll ask, well, could genocide have been a part of that? That's why we want to ask these sort of questions. So, what more can graves be used for other than storing dead bodies? Let me ask some questions before I go into the story. What more can graves be used for other than storing dead bodies? I want you to think about that. Why would any school need a cemetery? I asked that, and I'm asking it for the second time. What type of business, when it comes to these beatings and these students being beaten to death, that's to ask you, the viewer, what type of business were the staff running? Grown individuals. Do people use graves to hide things in which they don't want others to find out or know about, other than just dead bodies? I'm asking all this because it relates to the story in which I'm describing to you these former students, the reform school, that stated about the beating aspect. Okay, so back in 2013, over 50 graves. This isn't the first time graves were in fact discovered. Back in 2013, over 50 graves were found at the site of Arthur G. Dozier School for Boys. All males went to this school, right, in Florida. And then somehow, shyly enough, 27 graves appear. Researchers, in fact, found the first set of graves. That first 50, it was researchers that found those graves, right? So how the 27 graves were found is a company contracted by Geosyntech Consultants, Inc. was working on the property of the school for boys when the company's ground-penetrating radar was used to survey the area. How they go through the area with a device and you scan around, right? That is when the graves were picked up 165 yards outside of the school cemetery. There's a documented report from March 26, which Geosyntech verified with Florida's Department of Environmental Protection. But all this has in fact been verified. It is, and it's not something that you just make up and say, well, over here, because these days you don't know. You got people on the TV saying, well, that story's not real, and that story. All this nowadays has to be verified. It's not always verified, but it's best to find verified information as and have it documented, because it is quite likely as well as strange that those graves have been sitting there for all that time. And then all of a sudden, 27 more pop up. Something wasn't right about this school. owning a cemetery. Legally, on something, yeah. Within the report confirmed by Geosyntech expressed multiple lines of evidence. This is what is in fact in that report. Multiple lines of evidence indicate there were unmarked graves outside of the known cemetery on the school's campus, but exact locations have not been confirmed. Why would you need a cemetery and then graves are found outside of the school cemetery? Doesn't that sound kind of icky? Like there was more? Doesn't that, I want you, the viewer, to leave me a comment in the comment section about that. Doesn't that sound quite strange and off? That not only is there a school owning a cemetery, I'm saying this for the 1,000th time, a school owning a cemetery, right? Yes, it's been known in history. We know, I know somebody's going to comment and say that. Yes, I know about that. Yes, you can in fact look up in various cities and states, as in Google for yourself, that is in fact true. And yet, why would unmarked graves be outside the cemetery and not in it? It's odd. Because that what that does is it make you question. In fact, it would make you question how badly was these students beaten, but not only that, what all was used on their body. Because if you need graves that far away from the cemetery, unmarked graves, is to say you really, really wanted to hide something. Stuff like that will make me question molestation, abuse, and possible charges if somebody thought they would have been found out or something. Something don't seem right with that. That you don't, because that's almost like okay, so the graves, in fact, when you got unmarked graves, you can in fact use that sort of thing to hide evidence, even semen or whatever, even if a woman was involved in molesting and touching on young boys, whatever, how you hide evidence with that. But it just, something does not, it seems purely off, as in sketchy with that, because it still almost looked like a form of molestation or something worse, brutal. Because it'll make you want to question, well, I hope these students wasn't brutally victimized to the point of cutting up bodies and all the rest or something. So in 2017, Geosyntech was contracted by the state's Department of Environmental Protection Office to do cleanup work of the area as part of the agency's petroleum restoration program. In a letter, it states because of the history of the site, quotation marks. In the letter, it states because of the history of the site, Geosyntech hired a subcontractor to survey the land. That's in fact the specialty with that. You want to go to that land real precise and specific and not be just going there touching stuff and randomly bumping into stuff, because even DNA or something else could be there with that. But that's what I just spoke on. It's an outside field with that, but still, even subcontractors, they can know or might not know. Everyone has a lane or a specialty of something. There's a way that you go somewhere and use machinery, even if you weren't thinking about that before. You see what I'm saying? I had to use that example as vital for that. So, Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, sent a letter requesting representatives from the state to help Jackson County officials in investigating each finding of the graves, and stated his concern over the matter. No one, in fact, knows the reason or the intention for the graves, as in why were they there. Nobody knows. And with that, I think that former students need to be questioned further. I just do. Because one or two or possibly more might in fact know what you and I, the public, don't know. The molestation in which I spoke on, something is not right with the story. There's ways that even if you hide details, something or something like that, even students have a way. There's all type of ways of information being found out and discovered with that, right? Kids oftentimes in history know things in which they never speak of, right? So the reason the school closed, the school is known to be one of the largest reform institutions in the country. It closed in 2011. The reason for the school's closing is the U.S. Department Civil Rights Division confirmed students have been abused. That's why the school, in fact, closed. Just odd and strange that a school has to shut down because of abuse, right? But the graves, it still go together, right? What all does the U.S. Department Civil Rights Division know? Could there be information there in which you or either viewer don't know about, and yet they know, right? So the school opened in 1900. From the 1900s all the way to 2011 is to say, how long was the abuse and all the rest going on? Possible molestation, if that's questionable. Could have been going on since the 1900s. If there's a worker, staff, co-workers, right, it's to say there's generations in that, people being hired, people hiring their family members. Could that action or whatever of abuse been passed down through the generations? Even family members pass down levels of abuse. Why would that school be there? I just don't understand. The schools exist for educational purposes, but not all the time. Some people, in fact, build up schools to prey on children, as in a way of a learning process with that. Let me build and construct a school. Well, I can exchange, possibly funnel money. People do all type of things which is not right when it comes to schools involving especially young boys. I was going to say questioning the Catholic priest. That can tie into this as well, right? Because there's all type of reasons why you want it, and that's not looking down or degrading any priest or anything like that. And yet to go back in time to the 1900s is to say, well, okay, all males. The school had to close down. And yet there's a reason of hiding certain things and possibly evidence with that. Because, see, there could be more graves somewhere around that property, even much more further away. My goodness. In 2018, the property, right? The property was returned to Jackson County, which was issued in a statement. The county is working on rebuilding. This is, in fact, what was stated about that. They're working on rebuilding the land for commerce and industry purposes. But there still has to be more study of what is the point of, because it just looks like hiding or something. You can't really go rebuild and all this other stuff if you don't find out what is the reason and the purpose. And not only that, some of these individuals that done went to these schools while they just acting like whatever with that, more than likely need some therapy or something. Remember, the students, I'm saying former students who said that they in fact witnessed other students beaten to death and all the rest with that. Sometimes you can live in a society that overlooks stuff, even in knowing about stuff, and then brush that away. That's how society problems don't get solved. Because that's to say, now these older functioning grown men that attended the school now have underlying issues just from attending that school alone. That can lead to mental problems, mental issues, right? So back in 2013, archaeologists and anthropologists from the University of South Florida, they were in fact granted the access for excavation purposes in relation to the 50 unmarked graves. Back in 2013, archaeologists and anthropologists of the University of South Florida, they went See the photo up above? That's what it leads to, what it comes to with all that, right? So there were reports of abuse along with those mysterious deaths in which I spoke of, right? Quite mysterious. Because now that leaves you and I, the viewer, hanging. Because we don't know what to make of even the story. Make of it. How and what way could grown staff members have killed these kids? And could have hid them off the property. Could in fact have hid the kids off the property, because if there's unmarked graves, right? And say you got a grave and yet nothing is there or something, as to say, well, the child or various children could have been taken elsewhere and placed elsewhere, their body, I'm saying, right? So the individuals that attended, the males that were beaten, severely beaten, that's like the 1,000th time that I said that, they were severely beaten with leather straps by staff as well as administrators. Staff and administrators. That's sad, because that shows pure victimization, as in, I don't know what type of business it was. I asked that in the opening, and yet some type of business that it was in fact inhumane, as in the school or whatever shouldn't even been there from the beginning or something. If that behavior was passed down through the generations, I'm able to see something with even that. Because to know that you start a business is to say you're going to want to continue whatever actions and all the rest for as long as you can. That's a business survival, isn't it? And yet when it's abuse, is to say, yeah, more than likely it was occurring since the beginning of time. So we are in fact on investigationdiscovery.com. The logo sits in the far left corner. Live now, evil lives here. Unlocked episodes. To gain access, audio visual preview is a click to play sign. You can in fact add to watch later by clicking the plus sign. The last 24, season 2, episode 1. All these, as in you are given privilege to, yes, be granted access yourself right here. Checking this out. To gain access, sign in with whoever you are in fact subscribed to, your provider, right? That's the only way you're gonna get into that, because it's exclusive. Shouts out to Paula as well as Lieutenant Jokinda. Unlock series, same thing. You will notice there's a lot going on with these, with the preview. I'm swiftly moving through, that way I can hurry up and end this video out, because I know some people, if you guys made it all the way through. But yeah, I want you to tell me, what do you think about that story? What do you think about any of these stories in real life, as in what people do and when they're able to get away with stuff that you or I or anybody else wouldn't be given privilege to get away with? An unmarked grave. Shallow graves. Burning people's bodies to death. Drowning children in bathtubs. Is it all human nature, or is it not? Some people might say, well, that's the devil, activity of the devil. I don't know what it is, but it's something different than you or I. Yes, humans are known to get angry or get disgusted. You never know. You even have to question yourself, would I do that? Or would you, a viewer, do that if you were very angry or bitter at somebody? We never know what we are capable of doing, and yet it helps to think it through before it gets that far, killing somebody, right? I'm just saying. Crime feed. To gain access to the crime feed is a click right within here. It would in fact direct you to the outside crimefeed.com, full of the latest, greatest in mayhem. To receive a newsletter, to type in your email address and click next. I'm sitting on the next button, but if you click it, you would in fact receive a newsletter from investigationdiscovery.com. Yes, so it helps to understand how you, viewer, yourself think and process information. If somebody really made you mad and heated, would you pull out a shotgun on them? Pull out a shotgun on them. Some of us don't know how we might in fact respond. That's why it's good to know how you think and process, as well as even handle emotions. That will help you better understand other people's emotions, and yet not completely thoroughly when it comes to situations involving murder, kidnapping, all the rest. It's going to make you look, well, why did such and such do that? Why did such and such do that? They did what? They took the child and did what? That don't make no sense. Okay, so what? Because see, that's a flipping back and forth. I just said that. It makes you not only look at them, but look at yourself as well, as in how they're processing information and doing things could be the wrong way, as in killing and all that other stuff. And then you're able to flip back and look at yourself, as in why are you looking at them in the way that they're doing stuff? The judging aspect, picking things apart with your mind, right? That just makes better sense. If I'm gonna understand somebody's logic and reasoning skills, right, I gotta know how I think first. Do I judge people? Do I just judge on the surface first, or do I try to make sense, right? That just all goes together. Some people don't think that far because they don't question how themselves think and process information, right? You can even expand your mind, as in widen your thinking, by doing what I just said, asking. Even in your behaviors, why am I doing this right now? Why am I wearing these clothes right now? And then when I walk out in public and I see somebody, why does they have that on? It starts with the basic, because even that's analysis. It helps build critical thinking skills, even in problem solving, even up to the level of FBI. It's the starting of slowly. Why this? Why that? Why does this individual on this camera have braids in her hair? Why is she a tomboy? Why does she always wear braids in every single video? Why can't she wear anything else? And yet, if I don't answer you back on that, as I say, you're left with just the questioning, right? You might in fact say, well, because she's a tomboy, she more than likely don't like to do hair. And so the braiding of hair might in fact be easier for her to wear, right? You want to question and question and question and question and question to know, even if you never figure it out. That's lethal critical thinking skill builder for you. So I think that's all to be said for now. Viewer, hopefully you enjoy your day, and I will in fact enjoy mine, and I'm gone.